Grand Rising, everybody. Welcome to the Four Seasons podcast. It's your boy, Strong Blackbelt. Today, I'm opening this podcast up. I want to share something with y'all. We all know that June is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, but I feel like it's been pushed under a rug. Not enough people are talking about this month. I feel like that's something that happens to us men a lot, right? We get pushed under the rug with so many different conversations. I wanted to open this up because this month is very dear to my heart. Men's Mental Health Awareness Month is something that we're not speaking about. For those of you that don't know, 2,000 men will die from suicide a day. But if you guys don't know, 24 attempts happen before one is successful, which means about 50,000 men try to commit suicide every single day, but a small percentage will succeed. I wanted to open this up because in 2013, I was one of those members. I tried and it didn't work out. I feel that we need to bring this subject and topic to the table because somebody out there is probably thinking about doing it. And it's a split-second decision, and sometimes it's not like we're committed to doing it. It just happens. Boys, what do you got to say about that?
First off, morning. Very sensitive subject. It shouldn't be a sensitive subject, but it's a sensitive subject because, I too, at one point in life, was there. I felt like I didn't have any other answer. Clearly, I figured something out because I'm still here. But, it was back in 2017 for me. And it was a very dark time. I didn't really worry about myself too much. I was worrying about everybody else, as we typically do. Doing everything I needed to, but something inside of me wasn't. And well, we'll go into a little bit more details in a little bit. Which is right to into here, but morning.
It's going to be a sensitive subject for a lot, and I do want to say, please take a deep breath, listen at your own caution, and be aware that these are just our stories, things that we've been through. We don't mean to trigger anybody, but be aware that you should check on somebody. Check on those guys in your life because 2,000 is a big number.
It's probably one of the toughest topics we had to talk about. A lot of guys. I think a lot of guys are so worried about other people that they kind of forget about their own mental health. They tend to put things to the side because, it's crazy because I talked about this just recently. It's because the way we were raised, how we were groomed as children, and how society sees us. They expect us, they hold us to a higher standard when it comes to dealing with our emotions. So whether we're in relationships or whether we're dealing with things on our own, it's hard for us to express our own emotions and our feelings and what we're going through because if we tend to do that, we're afraid that it shows weakness. It shows weakness, and most guys don't want to be weak because, again, how we were raised, we were told to not show our emotions or act on our emotions. That sucks because we all lived it. I think this generation, they have a lot easier when it comes to dealing with it because the parenting scheme and maneuver is a lot different compared to what we went through as young men and young children and young boys, right? So I think that's where a lot of the problems and suicides, that's where it stems from. It's suppressing all those feelings and those emotions and depression and anxiety and all that stuff that encompass of why men make that drastic decision, that everlasting decision that could affect not only themselves but the loved ones around them. And I think it's important for us to talk about it because I do feel like, when we do have a month like this, it does get pushed to the side due to other agendas that are well known to us. But we're here. We're talking about it. We're bringing it to light because we do care about that stuff. We all lived it. We all been through it. Nick just lost a good friend of his. I lost a good friend of mine back in November, and he wasn't the first one. I'm sure he's not going to be the last one. And I think it's just, I'm happy to talk about this. It's not in the way that you guys think because it is a sore subject. So, we're here to support each other. Nick, we're here to support you because I know you're going through a lot of shit. I know it's probably taking an emotional toll on you because you probably have questions that don't have answers to them, and you're probably never going to get answers to them, And I'll tell you, it sucks because the guy that, my mentor, he was in the Marines, he led me to Christianity. He was the strongest one. He was one of the strongest guys I ever known, both mentally and physically. And he was the guy I went to when I was going through some stuff.
Right.
And he's like the last person you would think like, no, he wouldn't do that. But he did. So it could happen to any one of us. And that's the sucky part about it because we're so good at masking our problems that you wouldn't even know that person's going through something. And I think that's why it's important for us to talk about it. Get certain things off your chest and be there for each other and understand, you have fellow brothers, men that are willing to listen and understand, who can identify, who can relate and talk to about it. So it's never good to keep that stuff to yourself, man. So we're here for you.
I appreciate that. Jumping into that, with the guy that I knew, I wouldn't say that me and him were super close friends, but we've known each other since we were younger. I think him and his family moved into the neighborhood that I lived in. I think maybe junior high, something like that. Maybe he was a year young. He has the twin sister. Okay, so him and his twin sister, I think they're 1 year younger. But anyway, went to high school together. You know what I mean? We were neighbors. Like we would bullshit or whatever. We actually became better friends after high school. You know what I mean? Because when you're younger, you have certain friends you run around with. You know what I mean? Like him and his family did a lot of different things. They used to ride horses and all that type of shit. I was over here fucking doing drugs and skateboarding, and fucking running around doing shit that I wasn't supposed to. Probably should have chose his path, but we do what we do. We're younger, but it was actually after we got out of high school. I heard that he got in. He was really big into music and playing guitar and stuff like that. Which is something I enjoy as well. But when you get older, you kind of lose contact with people. But if you see him, you still talk to him. You know what I mean? Hey, how you doing? Hope everything's good. Yada yada yada. He actually reconnected with me a couple months back, just to bullshit. You know what I mean? He would comment on, comment on stuff. Your stories or whatever the case was. And what's crazy is I found out about it on the 2nd of this month, day that he had ultimately chosen to take his own life on the 30th. And on the 29th, he had sent me a message because I had cut off cut off my beard and like trimmed up and cleaned up and everything. And he was like, he sent me a message. He's all, "You trimmed up, man. It looks good." And I said, "Hey, thanks, man." I said, "I appreciate it. It was needed." You know what I mean? And that's really all I left it at, because I didn't know the struggle that she was going through. Obviously, had I known, I probably would have tried to keep that conversation going a little bit more, you know? Because it's, like you say, it's just it's a split second decision. And granted, this was the next day that he had, I was talking to him on the 29th. And then, you know, it happened on the 30th. And I realized he never like seen that message and didn't respond to it after that. Maybe, I don't know if he was just, I don't know where he was in his head at that point. I know a lot of people that, and I hadn't heard from him in a minute, you know what I mean? But I know a lot of people, before they've already had this thought in their heads, you know what I mean? Because a lot of people have this thought in this thought in their mind, plan in their mind, okay, this is when I'm going to do this. Whether or not you realize it or not, a lot of people thought about that, and they almost plan it in their head that they're going to do this. But he didn't read my reply, and there's that part of me that thinks to myself, like, fuck. Was I the last person that this guy messaged? Was I the last person that he could have adopted? But he didn't read the message, so I mean, obviously I'll never know. I think to myself, like, you know, had he possibly opened the message and then generated that, and he made a response about something. You know what I mean? Maybe the conversation could have went somewhere different and taken a whole different topic of what's been going on, how you been doing, type shit. You know what I mean? So I think about that to myself, and and it really fucked me up for like a couple of days, because after I've seen that he did that that his family, his brother posted something about it. Older brother. I thought to myself, I was like, fuck, man, like, I talked to him the day before that he ultimately gave up, you know, where he had that moment of weakness. So, and you know, and the crazy part is, there's another 2 weeks before that. There's another guy that I've known since high school. Me and him were cool. Quite a few years ago, me and him had a falling out. I had made a joke or something like that. He didn't really take it the right way, and he thought that I was, you know, coming at him sideways or something like that. Like, thought I was being disrespectful or rude to him. But I had known the dude for ever since I was 14 years old. So I was just, and then if you know me, you know how I am, you know how I act. But you know, yeah, I seen this that he actually took his own life as well. 2 weeks prior to me finding out about the other guy that I, you know, no. Although me and that guy weren't on the best of terms, I didn't have anything against the guy, obviously. But that shit hit close to home, because it's the people that you associated with, it's people that you knew on a personal level. Whether or not you guys talked every day, because I don't even talk to my family members every day, so it's not like, you know what I mean? Could be friends with somebody, you don't have to talk to them every day.
Yeah.
But it sucks, you know, knowing that two men, great fathers, providers, had a split second decision that changed everything for their lives, for their children. You know, but they both had kids. The one who's more recent, he had two younger kids, and I think his kids were shit. I think they were both under 10. That's it's heartbreaking to see, or to hear about something that I don't want to say it could have been prevented, because I don't know. I think a lot of once you have that thought in your mind, I think it comes to you, and when it does come to you, you have the split second decision that you're going to do it or you're not.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing all that, bro. Those personal stories. I know that will be valuable to somebody who's listening to this podcast. Most I want to hear from you, bro. I know that you and I have posted a few things on social media and they've been taken down. Trying to raise awareness for this month. But it sheds some light to those people that aren't on TikTok, that don't follow us.
Yeah, in the comments to myself for that one, but I've tried to post a couple of things on TikTok, social media, and everything. I've been flagged. I've been removed. I've been getting warnings. This topic usually hits hard because my previous podcast I talked about it, but I almost did it. I was inches away from doing it. I tried it twice. First time, once again, I'll probably tagline it episode here. I'll even talk about it later. I don't want to get into it as much, but I almost took my life after a hard breakup, after a 13-year breakup. Missing my kids, not seeing my kids on a daily basis. Driving 120 on a, for those of you who know Holland Drive, it's nothing but turns and curves, and it's a hillside. And for you driving an SUV going 120, going downhill, all it takes is one little slip. The only thing that saved me that night is I did do a sharp right turn, and my keychain flew out, and there was a picture of my kids that hit me and basically landed on my lap. And once that landed on my lap, made me realize that, why am I going to give them any more pain? I'm the one dealing with the pain, not them. So why have them suffer through many more years in life? I realized that there was still a way I had to catch myself from going down, and I controlled it, and obviously I'm still here. But according to the whole mental health awareness, it's not even the quiet ones that we have to worry about. It's hard to say this because I'm always happy and joyful, and I'm always trying to make somebody laugh, and I'm always trying to make somebody happy, but it's always those that you have to look out for. It's the ones that are trying to make those other people happy, smile, laugh. It's the ones that are trying to put light into you and giving you all their energy. Even if some people take advantage of it, that's what we're here for, because technically at the end of the day, we don't want you to do what we went through or what we were going to go through. You know, that's the hardest part. And once again, I try to post stuff on TikTok. TikTok removes it because somehow, some way, and I'll probably get a bunch of hate about this, but somehow, some way, LGBTQ month is more important than mental health awareness. It's not. You know, there's Pride Month, Pride Week, Pride everything, but at the end of the day, nobody gives a shit about mental health. But if it would have been the other way around, like women's mental health, trust me, the whole world would stop for that. So why is it that we can't even get a week, a day, a second? Because we ain't shit. You know what? When you said that right there, I think that nobody recognizes it until it hits close to home.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's for anybody. Men, women, whatever. You may not think much about it, but it's not gonna sink into your head until some shit like this happens to you. And it doesn't even have to be somebody close to you. It could just be somebody that you met before. Whether or not you speak to that person on a daily basis or not, I'm not talking about just a person you met one time. You know what I mean? It's just somebody you know. You don't even necessarily have to be like, I would say, good friends with somebody. Just the fact that you and that person used to associated on a personal level. Then you will fucking understand. But until then, you don't. I'm not too worried about it. It doesn't affect me. It doesn't affect you until it does.
Yeah, Nick, I used to think that taking your own life was a form of weakness until I tried it, and then I realized that it takes a lot of strength to try. It takes a lot of energy to try. When I was working in a specific organization doing mind-body medicine for them, there's a different type of people that will do suicide. There's those people that are committed, which is a very small percentage. If I remember correctly, in 2019, I was trained for suicide prevention, and I think it was like 10 or 15% of people actually are committed, and those people usually have it's like a chronic thing for them. So they attempt often until one day it finally works. And then the other is just in the moment I overdrank and I let my emotions get to me, or I was very high and I let my situation get to me, my circumstances, and I decided that it was time. But it's only a small percentage of people that it's like a split-second decision. And I was in that split-second decision in 2013 because I was in the worst place of my life. Physically, with my chronic autoimmune disorder. But man, you know what hurt more than that physical pain that I had was that mental pain that I was carrying that I don't think anybody was really seeing. Like Mosca said earlier, it's normally the people that are the most joyful that hide it the best, but they're the ones that, like Robin Williams. I think about Robin Williams being one of the goats of comedy. Who would have ever thought? So it's for me, bro, like I tried in 2013 and I've battled with my mental health for many years, even now, to the point that it comes up. It comes up, but I always have to remind myself this needs to pass. This needs to pass.
Yeah.
But in 2013, it was just very spontaneous. And after I attempted and failed, that's when I realized that what I was doing was not right. So for some people, it's just heat of the moment, split-second decision, and it took me being in a training to help people prevent suicide that I realized that I went a little over 6 years without mentioning to anybody that I attempted. 2019, like I was at this training and I shared. We all had to play out a scenario because, we had to negotiate trying to talk somebody out of suicide. And I just went with what I remember happened to me that day. And I told the instructor, I'm like, I've never shared that with anybody. And she's like, your wife doesn't know? And I'm like, no. And she's like, you need to find the time and tell her. Man, I remember in 2019 when I came home so drained emotionally from that training. that I sat with Annie and I told her what happened, and we bawled our eyes out together. It was needed, holding that in for so long. So, man, and not just men, a lot of women too, but women have a lot of support. But this goes specifically for the men. If you're thinking about it, just know that you might leave this earth, but you will leave a print behind, and that print will be painful to somebody, because you are, whether you might feel alone, but you are meaningful to somebody. The day you were born, you changed somebody's life. So the day that you created a life, you were here to change that life, bring that life, give it life. So don't give up on yourself, bros. Just reach out to any of us. This is why I love to always ask, how are you feeling? How are you feeling? It's like my thing. How are you feeling? People message me anything on social media. I'll agree to whatever they message me, recognize whatever they message me, and then I'll always ask, how are you feeling? Because I want to know, how are you feeling?
And you know what? It's crazy that you say that, because I started saying that. Like, I'll message a couple of people instead of saying, "Hey, how you doing today?" Every time you ask, "Hey, how you doing today?" the answer's gonna be, "I'm good and I'm okay."
Yeah.
But if you ever ask, "Hey, how you feeling today?" the answer you actually get an answer this time, and it's more than just an "okay" and "I'm good." But if you come in, how fucking I say this shit? In reality, it's always the guys that are asking this. We have never been asked that. I know you do, obviously, Vato. We probably tell each other that, but outside of us four in here, has anybody else reached out to you and said, "Hey, how you feeling? How you doing today?" There's actually, for me, there's actually a couple of people that do. Just randomly, whatever. Just randomly, they'll reach out. You know what I mean? Which is good. It's always welcome. Like, yeah, like that's cool. Like I'm doing good today. How's everything going with you? Right. I typically don't ask, how are you doing, or whatever. I'd say, like, how's everything going with you? Because I feel like our saying, how's everything going with you? It kind of opens up like a bigger door. You know what I mean? And
Open-ended questions, bro.
Sometimes they'll tell me, you know what I mean? Like, I'm going through it right now, or whatever. You know what I mean? We'll talk about it for a moment, or however long is needed, and then we move on. And I think all it takes is a split-second conversation of talking about it, to express your feelings, and you think to yourself, like, whether it was, you know what I mean, whether or not you're feeling that bad about yourself. I think it leads to, okay, you know what, like, I expressed my feelings today. I'm good.
Bro, there's the premeditation of, like, okay, this is how I'm gonna do it. This is what's gonna happen. Like, going through the game plan. Anytime that I think about this, I think about that. I don't remember the name of the guy, but it's the guy that tried to jump from the San Francisco Bridge. When they interviewed him, he said that this is why acknowledgement is so important to me, because he said that as he's walking to go jump, that he kept walking by people and he'd look at them. Like, he didn't want to do it, but he felt like this was his way out. This was his premeditated. And he said that if anybody would have just acknowledged him and said hi, he already had it in his mind that he wasn't going to do it.
I think that's everybody has a different way, sense of cry for help, like a last minute cry for help. I think the problem is we are too fucking stubborn. We're too stubborn to recognize our own faults or our own failures when it comes to that type of mindset.
Yeah.
And I think we have to hold each other accountable, because we really don't hold each other accountable until something happens to one of our friends. That's when we insert ourselves into trying to mitigate and prevent certain things that happen in the future. And the only reason why I say that is because I'm guilty of that. I've been guilty of that for so many fucking years. Because you're like Nick said, there's so many things that we could have done to prevent certain things from happening, but we can't read everything. The reason why we can't read everything is because we're emotionless. For example, I'm looking at stats. According to 2023, 77% have experienced symptoms of mental health conditions such as anxiety, depression, stress. And only 40% of those men will seek professional help if it came to self-harm. And then, of course, and it's a huge problem because 76% of those men are suicides of 2023 were men. And we're 4 times higher to commit suicide than women. And that's a stat that I'm pretty sure I'm not proud to freaking even say. And so it's very important for us, like to keep each other in check when it comes to that, when it comes to understanding, like, hey, like you guys were saying earlier, like, hey, ask that question. How are you feeling? Like he was saying. And even if that was asked, a lot of men will play it off as there's nothing wrong. That's why we have to be consistent with each other. Because if we're not consistent with each other, that's where the guilt comes through. The regret of, damn, I should have done more. But how many times did we let our own lives get ahead of us that we forget about those ones that we love? Because I'm pretty sure everybody has friends that are going through something. Have you reached out to them? And if you have you broke that barrier? Did you settle for the I'm okay, don't worry about it fucking bullshit that we usually fucking tell our friends? I have a friend, Chris. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, bro.
No, I have an accountability partner. His name is Chris. Good Marine. We have a lot in common when it comes to a lot of the guys that committed suicide in the past. Friends that we known each other from the Marine Corps and brothers in Christ. So he calls me once a week. I call him every other week. I call him. We have a conversation. Was important for us to have that one person we identify that we know we go to at least once a week or every other week to fight in. So I think that's an important thing that us men should have, is that accountability partner, is to keep us on a straight, narrow path so we're not veering off. So didn't mean to cut you off. So that's my
No, you're good, bro. I 100% agree with you, bro. We need accountability partners. We need to have our own sense of accountability. We need levels of accountability, but we also need a community. We need a support system. Right now, my mentor, like, I don't reach out to my mentor for mind body medicine at this time because he's from the Palestine, and I think they have worse things going on over there than what I have going on in my life, So I think sometimes we just got to take that deep breath and recognize that, yeah, it could be better, but it also could be worse. And we just have to ground ourselves. I mean, I look forward to this every week because this is a place where I can come and dump some things. And I don't mean like dump my worries or my stressors or my traumas or my problems on people. I mean, this is a place where I can come and express. And one of the best things that has happened to me in the last decade of being an entrepreneur is when people reach out to me through social media and say that the video that I posted helped them, or the fact that I reached out and just did a mental health check. The amount of people that have told me that they were thinking about getting to that point of suicide and that something that they saw that I posted helped them just kind of rejoices me into not stopping. Because what happens to people, I believe that everything is energy. right? And you have to protect your energy. But if you're always giving energy and you're not receiving the good energy back, if you're always giving energy and you're not receiving good energy back, you are giving your energy out. You're not rejoicing your energy. And when you don't rejoice your energy, you get drained and you get to the point where you're like, here's a way out. And I just, yeah, you got to rejoice your energy, guys.
Yeah. You know, for me, personally, there's been a couple times where I wanted to give up. And I won't say like, you know, once was when I was a teenager, and crazy. My mom actually took me to a doctor. I could see a doctor, right? My mom noticed that I was kind of depressed, so my mom took me to a doctor, and the doctor just kind of said, "He's just a teenager." Like I literally told this dude, like, I want to take my life, and he attributed it to me just being a teenager looking for attention, but I wasn't looking for attention. There was so much, I think, that I was holding in that you start your head starts playing with you, your mental health starts playing with you. And I remember going to that doctor and the dude saying that and speaking to myself, like, really. I remember thinking to myself, like, this motherfucker just thinks I'm just here to bullshit or something. But I wasn't. And you know what? And it kind of made me glad that he did that, because it changed my whole mindset. I think like you thought that I was just doing it just to like attract attention, but I wasn't. Like there was something in me that my mental health wasn't there. Because this was already after I had been in, my accident where I actually did, they did lose me in the ambulance and they brought me back to life. I actually did, my heart stopped beating. I got into a, long story short, I got into an accident when I was in, it's actually coming up this month. It's June 30th, and I was 13 years old. So that 30th, 1995. I was 13. No, 96 because I was in the hospital for over a month, and I turned 14 in the hospital. Drinking, partying. I got into a car wreck. I broke like 12 bones. Broke three bones in my neck. My C1, C2, fractured C3. Broke my collarbone. Fucking shattered my femur, my knee. Broke a bunch of shit. But
Crazy, bro.
But it wasn't. It was more than. I don't know if it was that. I don't know if I was still dealing with like the trauma from that, because this was like a couple of years after that. You know what I mean? A year or two after that. So I was probably 15 or 16. But so after that accident, my mental health probably wasn't where it should have been. And then there was another time where it was in 2017. It was in January 2017. I just wasn't in a good headspace. Super, super depressed. There was a lot going on at that time with my oldest daughter. I just, you know what I mean. There's as long as my oldest daughter's been alive, there's always been like, just back and forth bicker between our mother and I, constantly going to court. Just a lot of shit. But I was just at a weird point in my life in 2017, and I was fucking depressed. I remember sitting on my kitchen floor with my back against my refrigerator, thinking to myself, like, I don't want to fucking do it anymore. I don't want to fucking do any of it anymore. I don't want to fucking see the motherfucking sun rise again. Because then I know another day of bullshit.
What changed your mind?
My daughter sent me a text message. Changed everything. My daughter sent me a text message as I was sitting there on my kitchen floor, about ready to do whatever it is I was gonna do.
Yeah.
Change my whole perspective. It changes your whole perspective because you know what I mean. Like Mocha said when he was driving, and he did that turn, and the picture of his kid landed in his lap. If that's not the fucking ultimate fucking reason, what other reason do you have? So to me, that was like a pivotal point, turning myself, and I don't think I slept for like 2 days after that. Hold on. Just simply for the fact that I was so disgusted with myself that I was gonna take that there. But that's all it took was a split second. That split second to change everything.
That's beautiful that you mentioned all that, Nick, because when it's not our turn to go, we can force our way out. But the universe and our creator is going to send us a bunch of different reasons as to why we shouldn't do it, but we might not see it. Like with Mosca, 120 miles an hour picture lands on him. That's the universe. That's our creator saying, hey, it's not your time. Settle down. You're forcing it. In 2022, I was going to attempt again, and I didn't. Somebody stopped me. I won't go into that one. But, it's just our creator is constantly sending us way as to why we shouldn't. We can ignore them. I have a question for all of us, people, our viewers, and you can probably, most people can comment anonymously, right? In like Spotify and all that.
Leave their name.
Okay. Well, it's up to people if they want to share. I would love to know. And I would love to know.
Messages.
Yeah, and I would love to know from you guys as well. When you attempted, how long did it take you to open up and speak about it? It took me 6 years. How long did it take you guys to be okay, open up, and share that you went through that?
This was the first time that I had ever mentioned the one from 2017. I've never mentioned it or talked to it about anybody. Talked to it with anybody. Let's go.
You know how long it took me? I started. So when I tried it was 2019. Well, it was literally New Year's Day. I was on my way to work. 2020. Because I just finished watching my kids. And I was like, you know what? I can't do this. Because spoke about it. It took me 2 years. Or about a year. And I didn't even speak about it to anybody. I said it on the podcast. I had nobody to talk to at that moment. Like, I didn't know what TikTok was. I didn't know what to do. And that's when I was listening to a bunch of podcasts. And I heard a podcast called Phone Booth or something, where people went in there and just opened up. And I said, you know what? I'm going to start my first podcast. And I was the last episode on season 1 that I did. And that's when I opened up about it. That's when I spoke about it. But I never really had anybody to talk about it or speak about it till recently. I think you guys probably have heard me talk about it here and there, but like to go into details how I spoke about it on the podcast, I don't think I've ever done that till today. Yeah.
Well, I will say that it's fucking hard. It's very hard to speak about this. I used to choke up when I would first speak about it. And then I realized that I needed to share because somewhere out there, somebody's going through something that I'm similar to what I'm going through. And I just needed to be open to sharing. I appreciate, Nick, I appreciate you sharing it for the first time on this podcast. Most I appreciate you speaking deeper about it in your podcast.
Mike, me?
We're not weak. Go ahead, bro.
Mike, me? You.
Give me a minute.
There you go. I will feedback. I go ahead. Yeah. We're getting feedback.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys being vulnerable and sharing this with people that know us and people that don't know us. So it takes a lot. And hopefully it makes more men open up. At the end of the day, that's what this podcast is for, right? To support, inform, and bring awareness.
Correct.
So I'm glad that you guys are able to open up about it. And, you know, anybody listening to this, if you have questions about our journey, I'm sure we still struggle. We're human. We're going to continue to struggle. But we got to be able to ground ourselves. That's the most important part. I think Mike was going to say something before he muted himself.
Any final thoughts?
No, I'm sorry. Got disconnected. That's hard. For my closing statements, it's kind of like to bring certain things to light. You know, why we don't talk about our mental health. You know, there's we talked about this. I want to get it on podcast like months ago. Here's some stats to kind of bring to light why men don't talk about their mental health. You have 1,000 men they did studies on. This is some of the answers. 40% say I learned to deal with on our own. That's typically how we are. We like to deal with things on our own. 36% say I don't wish to be a burden to anyone because we feel like that if we bring our emotions or problems to light, we feel like it affects everybody around us. And 29% of us believe it's embarrassing to talk about our own emotions and our own problems. And 70% of us don't want to admit that we need support. And 60% of us don't want to appear to be weak. Or 14% of us feel like we don't have nobody to talk to. So those are just stats. To close my statements is we got to do better as individuals and brothers and hold each other accountable and make sure that we're doing others a good service. So I'm just going to close that one out.
Reach out to the bros and check in on them.
Closing for me, after listening to this, and you know, with one down about yourself or down about anything in life, you know, man or woman. I mean, the mental health awareness month, but I mean, everybody deserves somebody to listen to. I know there's women who go through the same shit, not just the men's thing. So if there is something that's troubling you or that you need to get off your chest, there's always somebody there who will listen, regardless if you feel like there is or not. There's always somebody who will listen, and it'll probably be the person that you least expect. If anybody wants to reach out to any of us, I'm sure any of us will have an open ear to hear somebody out and tell you our thought. You know what I mean? Because everything that we've ever said, we've said this from the very beginning. Everything that we've ever said in this podcast has always been our views, our opinions, our experiences. Thank you, buds. Thank you for the hangers. My son brought me hangers. Not sure why, but it's always been our views and our opinions. Hold on, bud. But and it will continue to be that way. But if there's something that's bothering you, please reach out. Reach out. If you don't want to reach out to us, that's fine. I understand because, some of you know it, some of you don't, some of you are complete strangers, and that's fine. But I will say this: sometimes the complete stranger can always be the perfect person to listen because they don't know anything about you or anything about what's going on. So, there's that.
Father's Day is right around the corner, so make sure that you check in on the men in your life, whether they have kids or not. Check in on the men in your life because we're fighting demons like you are. We're fighting battles like you are. A lot of them are we're a lot more silent about it. So just check in on the man that you appreciate and ask them how they're feeling. See what's new with their life. You don't have to force conversation, but just check in. It's free. Checking in is free.
On that note, pick up on everyone. We're out.
Thanks for
Have a great